Hi, everybody. I'm Wallace Chan, coming from Hong Kong. So I'm now an associate professor at the Department of Social Work, Chinese University of Hong Kong. So I'm a registered social worker in Hong Kong. Before I joined the university, I worked in hospitals as a medical social worker, focusing on palliative care and bereavement services. So I do think that logotherapy has a really close connection with all these topics, death, dying, and bereavement, because we all know that when we need to face the terminal illness or when we need to face bereavement, there are different kinds of sufferings that we have to address, and logotherapy provides a means for us to search for the meaning and also to search for the meaning, especially in the sufferings. This is a long story, probably many years ago when I was still a social work student in the university. When I attend a course called Human Behavior and the Social Environment, we have a chance to know different psychological approach. I remember my lecturer shared with us Freud, Skinner, different kinds of psychologists. And in one lecture, he mentioned Viktor Frankl, but I still remember he just introduced logotherapy in a few sentences. But even just within a really short period, I was impressed by the contents of logotherapy. I still remember the lecturer at that time shared with us Viktor Frankl's logotherapy. The essence of this approach is that we need to search for the meaning when we come across a lot of sufferings. So this is a kind of spiritual approach. So, and full stop. And then my query is, oh, why my professor just share just so limited contents on this approach, which I found very interesting and meaningful. So I started my personal search for logotherapy, and of course, to be very honest, because at that time I was facing a lot of sufferings in my personal life, in my family. So I'm thinking a lot of these existential questions in my life. I was thinking, oh, why was there so many sufferings, and what was the meaning in life at that time? So I started to read the book Man's Search for Meaning. Probably this is the book. We all know that the friends in logotherapy circle, we all many of us start to read this book first, and I was really impressed by the contents of this book, Man's Search for Meaning. And this is the first step. I knew more about Viktor Frankl and also logotherapy, and this journey starts. Yeah. When I read this book, Man's Search for Meaning, yeah, many years ago, I still remember at that time when I was contemplating all these kind of existential questions. So I got a chance to search for the answers from this book. I was especially impressed by the sharing of Viktor Frankl when he shared the moments when he faced the sufferings in the concentration camp, and it seems that man is so resilient that even during the sufferings, it seems that people have a chance to choose their own attitudes towards the sufferings. I still remember a story mentioned by Viktor Frankl. So at the really worst moment, some people still choose to donate their breath to the people who are more in need of that. All of us were in hunger, but still some people can choose to respond to sufferings in a different way. So I was so impressed by all these ideas, and to be very honest, at a very personal level, I do think that I got the support from this book, especially at that time when I was struggling because I was facing the death of my loved ones in the families. So yeah, this is something that I really remember. Yeah. I especially like the three tenets of logotherapy when we mention about the meaning of life, the will to meaning, and all these things. I do think that this is, and the freedom of will, all these three tenets are the basic, but also the essence of logotherapy, because we need to have a perspective to face the sufferings. So logotherapy offers a perspective to respond to the sufferings. Otherwise, we may become very hopeless because it seems that there is no way out. But the basic tenets of logotherapy remind us that perhaps we may respond in a different way. Because even in my training, when I need to share with others what is logotherapy, I always share the three tenets of logotherapy first, because this is the essence. It helps us to respond to the sufferings in a different way. And especially as it's important because when we, for example, in our practice, when we need to face a person in sufferings, okay, they may always share with us that life is meaningless. There is no choice in my life, and all the things are chosen by the fate and by the higher order. And I can't see the meaning, and it seems that there is no motivation in my life. So all these things actually are responding to the three tenets of logotherapy and how we may respond to people in sufferings. And I do think that the three basic tenets of logotherapy provide us a chance to respond to these people. Yeah. The three tenets of logotherapy. So first of all, meaning of life. We believe that life is meaningful despite all the sufferings, and we can still see the meaning in sufferings. And this is one of the important tenets. Okay, and other is that will to meaning. And I would say this is the in logotherapy we are talking about. This is the underlying motivations of human beings. We are motivated by the meaning. Sometimes I do think that yes, life may be full of sufferings, but if we can see the meaning, we are motivated to achieve some of our goals, some of our purposes, and we see the will to meaning. And this is the second tenet of logotherapy. And the third tenet is that we are talking about freedom of will. We all know that we are not free from all the things. We are limited by some of the basic existential conditions of life. We need to face aging, we need to face death and dying, and all these things we may not change. But perhaps the freedom of will reminds us that we are still free to choose a stand, to face all these things, to face the sufferings. And this is another important tenet in logotherapy. So in summary, meaning of life, will to meaning, and also freedom of will. Yeah. When I was a social worker in the field, I work with palliative care patients and also bereaved families. And And as a social worker, I try to integrate logotherapy with my social work practice. Because in social work, we say that perhaps we all know that sometimes we need to change the system. We need to advocate the rights of our clients. But sometimes we know that there are some limitations or some things that we may not change immediately. And at that time, I do think that logotherapy will be a very important piece because it makes a good balance. Sometimes we know that we need to change the system, but sometimes when the things cannot be changed, just like the terminal illness, we hope that perhaps we can find a way to choose to respond to these things in a different way. So I try to integrate logotherapy with my clinical practice. So I don't think that this is important because logotherapy always reminds us that human beings are spiritual. In Viktor Frankl's terms, as the loactic dimension is so important. So we always say that people are full of inner resources. But what are these kind of inner resources? We focus on these spiritual resources, just like sense of humor, creativity, and all these things. And I do think that this is, for me, it provides me a chance to really explore and understand some of the strengths of our clients. And these may be a very good way to respond to their illnesses, to their sufferings. And I think that this is an important part. And I would not say I fully practice logotherapy, but I do think that logotherapy is a really good piece to integrate with my own social work practice. I do think that logotherapy reminds me that human beings are spiritual, and I dare to explore these things in the clinical interviews with my clients. So I dare to explore their meaning of life, their source of meaning. I dare to explore their different life stories to understand what makes them to sustain in their life. So because on one hand, if we just focus on the illnesses, we just see the despair, we see the sufferings. But with logotherapy, I do think that I dare to further explore the source of meaning, the will to meaning, what really help them to sustain in their life. And I do think that this is a really important part. And we don't just focus on their physical side, their emotional side, but we also focus on their spiritual side, which are full of freedom and different ways to respond to their sufferings. And I do think that this is the most important part. I especially integrate logotherapy with my grief counseling, because when I work with bereavement families, okay, on one hand, we always say that we need to address their grief, their emotions. We all know that it is important to work with their emotions, their grief. But another important thing that I do think that logotherapy can contribute to bereavement counseling is that it reminds us that apart from grief, despite all this grief, what is remaining? So apart from the grief, how can we live with this grief and still experience a meaningful life? So I think that bereaved families, bereaved persons do need that part. They don't just want to address the grief, but because they have to cope with the new environment in which their family members may not be with them physically. So I do think that this is important, because living with grief does not just mean that we address the emotions, but we need to address what is the meaning when we need to continue our life. So I do think that this is important and make a good balance in the bereavement counseling. Yeah. I still remember I worked with an older adult. She was at that time in her 70s. So she experienced multiple deaths, death of siblings, death of husbands. And within a really short time, she experienced the death of so many significant persons in her life. At that time, she was really depressed, and yeah, she just did not want to continue her life. She could not find the meaning in her life. So on one hand, I try to understand and also accept her grief, and this is important. It's okay to grieve because these persons are really important persons in her life. But on the other hand, we start to explore what is remaining in her life. When I try to understand her more, I understand that she is a person who really emphasize on the human relationships. She likes making connections with different people, and I start to understand why she experienced so many grief, because she was that kind of person, because she emphasized, she thought that the human relationships are so important, and that's why she grieved for the death of her loved ones. But on the other hand, I do think that this is also a very beautiful, important spiritual resource for her. And I talked with her, and she started to, we try to explore how she may reconnect with different people. And this is a long process, but with the support, she tried to explore a bit, little bit by little bit. And finally, she got a chance to join some social center for the elderly in the community. And she started to build up some new relationships with other new friends. And it seems that at that time, she started to find the meaning in her life, because this is the core spiritual resource of her. She would like to make human connections with others. And with the support with all these people, to start to re-establish her life. And I do think that this is important because on one hand, I do think that she may still experience the grief, but at the same time, she started to enjoy her life more, and started to establish her life after grieving for her loved ones for such a long time. So, and I do think that this is, for me, I do think that this is something that I was inspired by the logotherapy, because we always try to understand and explore the spiritual dimensions of our clients. And I do think that without this approach, I may just maybe just stuck by the grief of this lady, but cannot find the way out. But logotherapy do remind us that perhaps, yeah, we may help this lady to search for the meaning by making use of her spiritual resources. Yeah. When I joined the university, I would like to develop a new course on death and bereavement. And I would like to integrate logotherapy with this course also. So finally, I developed this course. The name of this course is Living with Grief. Living with Grief, Understanding Death, Dying, and Bereavement. I welcome all the undergraduate students to join this course, no matter they come from social work or coming from other faculties. And I do think that university students, the youngster, they have a need to understand more about death, but at the same time, having more reflections on life. So when I developed this course, in the first part, I introduced the death-related concepts. I share with them the dying process. In the second part, I talk more about the grief and bereavement. I introduce different kinds of grief theories, bereavement models with them. But in the final part of this course, we are thinking about, so now we understand more about death and dying, but what is remaining? How may we respond to all these sufferings? Because when we understand more about death and dying, it seems that, oh, yes, we understand that, yeah, sometimes death is really heavy, yeah, life is full of sufferings. But how may we respond to these things? So now I introduce, at that part, I introduce logotherapy. And I share with them what is logotherapy, how we may respond to sufferings, and by introducing logotherapy, I do think that students may have a chance to reflect more on these things. Oh, what is meaning of life? What is meaning of sufferings? How may we respond to guilt and all these things? And I do think that that is a good mix and good balance, because the first two parts may be a little bit too heavy, but in the final part, we try to find a way to respond to the sufferings. And I hope that by understanding death, at the same time, they understand more about life. In my hometown, Hong Kong, I would say we don't have a lot of opportunities to talk about these kinds of things, death, meaning, and all these things. Because sometimes I always make a joke with my students. I ask them, what happened if one day you would like to talk about meaning in life with your friends? So imagine that situation. So every student will laugh, because it seems so odd that one day when I need to tell my friend, oh friend, can I share with you something? Oh, what's that? Oh, can we talk about meaning in life? So it seems so odd, right? Yeah, but this course provides a proper chance and a platform for them to talk about these things. It seems that these things are so odd that they may not have a chance to talk with others, but all of my students agree that these are something really, really important. So this is a paradox, because yeah, on one hand, it is so important, but on the other hand, we don't have a chance to talk with others. So in this course, it seems that there is a proper mean, or they have a chance to really, really talk about these things. So yeah, and it is normal for us to talk about meaning in life in this course. So yeah, I do think that this is a really, really important part in this course, and students enjoy that kind of discussion, because probably this is the first time they have a chance to really have these kind of conversation properly in their life. And in fact, a lot of students, they do have experienced different kinds of sufferings. Perhaps the death of their grandparents, perhaps they experience their dating separation and different kinds of sufferings, and all these things. And I do hope that, yeah, I may have a chance to really, really, yeah, share these topics with the younger generation. Yeah. Yeah, I think that this is something really special in our life. These are some of the special moments. Yeah. I can't really have a really concrete answer on this, but I do think that some of us may have these kind of moments in our life. For me, perhaps, for example, for me, I need some time to be alone, for some me time for me. So at that time, when I focus on something, perhaps watching a movie and watching a movie alone, and I do have that kind of space, time to reflect on life. And sometimes I get in touch with myself. So, and I think that the get in touch with meaning is that it is not just a kind of emotion. It's not just a condition. It is more than that. And we all know that because when we talk about meaning, it's something that you are really moved by the meaning. And it is a comprehensive, holistic change, not just a change in the condition, change in the emotion. It's about life perspective. And this is something that I try to differentiate a little bit. Oh, this is the meaning, because the meaning is so holistic. It is not just about emotions. It's not just about cognition. And I do think that the meaning is really something very interesting, because I always share with others that perhaps uncertainties will make us anxious. Uncertainties will bring anxiety, but at the same time, uncertainty may also bring us some surprise in our life, which is the meaning. Something we don't expect, but yes, at that time we suddenly encounter the meaning, and we find that, oh yes, that is a surprise. And that's why I try to conclude that uncertainty have two sides. One is anxiety, but another side is the meaning, and this is something out of our expectation. Yeah. At the personal level, I think that sometimes we do need to have that kind of passions. You need something that you are really passionate about, and this is, for me, is logotherapy. So because if you are passionate about something, yeah, already you see some of you experience some kind of meaning in your life. And that's why when I'm so passionate about logotherapy, I really want to share with others what is logotherapy. And that's why I in the past and over the past years, I continue to conduct different kinds of training, workshops to helping professionals, to palliative care professionals, and in the university to introduce logotherapy to my students. This is something that I really want to do in my life. And I think that this is something that I also benefit from this kind of work, because a lot of helping professionals, a lot of students, after joining the workshop, attending my lessons, they all share with me that, oh, logotherapy do have an impact on their life and help them to have a chance to respond to the sufferings. And yeah, a lot of my students always mention this after attending my courses. They may say, oh, Wallace, perhaps I forget all the theories that you introduce, but at the end, I always remember a motto that you always mention in the course, because I always mention that life is meaningful despite all the sufferings. Yeah. And this becomes my teaching motto. And just a lot of students share with me that, oh, all the things they have already forgotten, but they still remember this important motto, which is useful, helpful for them in their life, in their work, when they need to face the sufferings. They remember this teaching motto: life is meaningful despite all the sufferings. And yeah, and perhaps this is something that I really enjoy, because logotherapy do provides me a chance to have different encounters with people. Because in fact, I got some very interesting experience, because even sometimes I may receive some cold calls from the community. I may not know them, but because when they search for meaning and then Hong Kong and try to type these keywords in the Google search engines, and they find my name and they approach me, and perhaps I do have that kind of experience. They want to have a meeting with me and just talking about meaning, because they hope that someone can really talk with them, listen to them, and really have a chance to start these kind of meaning conversation. In my project, I try to integrate logotherapy with the bereavement counseling. I saw different bereaved cases, and I have a chance to really reflect on how I may integrate the logotherapy approach with my counseling approach, and have a chance to really consolidate all these things through the mini dissertation. And I really enjoy the conversation with the mentor. And my mentor is Cindy, so I'm so thankful, because she was such a wonderful mentor. And of course, many years ago already, but I still remember this kind of conversation, this kind of supervision. And I got a chance to have a lot of reflections on all these things. And that's why I will say I fully recommend to other people, if you are really interested to know more about logotherapy and you would like to integrate your clinical practice with logotherapy, I do think that the logotherapy diplomate course is a wonderful choice for all of you. Yeah. Bereavement work is a really special piece of work. Sometimes, yeah, that the nature of that work is a little bit heavy, and especially in my culture, it seems that people don't want to mention about the sadness to express their grief. And this is something that, but perhaps for the bereaved persons, sometimes they do need to have a chance to adjust this part. This is important part. And that's why when I talk with the bereaved persons, sometimes I will think that the deceased family members do deserve our grief, because they are so good. These are so important, and that's why they deserve our grief. And I do think that this is a really meaningful work. And of course, because of my personal bereavement experience, I do hope that I may go back to this field to really accompany these people in sufferings, to help them to live with the grief, but at the same time to search for the meaning in these sufferings. So yeah, and that's why I really enjoy my work in the field of death and bereavement, and that's why sometimes I do think that life is full of a lot of surprises. Yeah, perhaps on one hand, I experience my personal sufferings, but on the other hand, perhaps also because of these sufferings, and it becomes the something that I would like to contribute in my life, and become something that I really passionate about. Or perhaps I would say, without that kind of sufferings, I may not have a chance to talk with you, Scott, today, and share with others that why I love death and dying, I love death and bereavement so much, I love working, I love logotherapy so much. And yeah, life is perhaps it's like this. Sometimes maybe difficult, but on the other hand, yeah, we still experience that kind of meaning in our life. Yeah. Logotherapy provides me a perspective to face my own life, and no matter in my personal life, in my family, in my work, and yeah, I think that this is something that I really treasure, because with this perspective, it seems that I on one hand I can accept and understand the negative emotions and sufferings, but on the other hand, um, I I get the strength to face different kinds of difficulties and sufferings in my life. And in the coming future, I do hope that I may continue my work in logotherapy to perhaps integrate logotherapy further with my research, with my education. I try to explore these things before, and I hope that I may continue that kind of work. For example, I would say perhaps integrating logotherapy with some of the work working with people who experience non-death related losses, not only death related losses, but also non-death related losses, because yeah, we may face separation. We may, for example, nowadays in my hometown, people are facing the separations because of migration, leaving their hometown, and all these brings a lot of grief. And these kinds of sufferings, and perhaps due to political issues and all these things, okay, bring a lot of sufferings to the people in my hometown. And I hope that perhaps logotherapy may also provide a chance for us to have more reflections on this topic, not only on the death-related losses, but also on the non-death related losses, loss of values and loss of justice and all these things. Yeah, these are something that I hope I may further integrate in the future. Yeah. I do think that I don't have a very concrete answers to these existential questions, but yeah, perhaps for me, I would say, yeah, first of all, I would say these are something perhaps we all have these kind of questions in our life. Yes, at at that level, we are connected, because these are something that is important. These things are these questions are some important questions that we all share in our life. Yeah, we don't have a very concrete answers, but we may try to share, to respond to these questions, and it can be very personal. Yeah, and yeah, I would say we may have these kinds of conversations. Sometimes I may share some of my life stories, and also invite them to share their life stories also. And sometimes we can see that connections, that kind of interactions when we share our life stories. And sometimes, yeah, I do think that it's important that on one hand, we really show the empathy on their sufferings, on their queries on life. But on the other hand, we maintain our faith in the life meaningfulness. So yeah, and there are different kinds of stories and experience that remind us that life can still be meaningful despite all these sufferings. Yeah. It happens during the pandemic. So because of the pandemic, my lectures have become in the Zoom mode and have to be conducted online. So to be very honest, I don't like Zoom lecture. I like to see the students face to face. On my mind, I have a lot of complaints. Yeah. So, but something happened in my experience, because one day when I conducted my lecture, I suddenly was aware that there were so many students online, more than the number of students registered to that course. So I asked a question, oh, what happened? So I welcome students to sit in, but at least can you send me an email to share with me, oh, who are you, and something like that. And after the lecture, one student sent me an email and told me, oh, I was one of the sit-in students, okay? I just received a link from my friend. My friend recommended me to attend this course. But why she can attend this course? Because due to the pandemic, in her major program, the practicum was canceled. And that's why she was free to attend my course. But at the same time, she shared with me at that lecture, not only she attend my course, another family member of her also attend the course. She shared with me, that is her father. Her father was suffering from cancer at that time, and her father was facing the struggle, the sufferings when facing the cancer illnesses. And she shared with me, because at that time, at that lecture, I talked about Viktor Frankl logotherapy. And she shared with me that her father received some kind of support when he listened to my sharing in logotherapy, and she would like to say thanks to me. So at that time, I was so moved by her sharing, because on one hand, I got a lot of complaints on my mind. I don't like Zoom lecture, but life told me that perhaps there is always meaning in our life, which is out of my expectation. Because after that, I reflect, if without the pandemic, probably this student cannot attend my lecture, and probably her father cannot attend and listen to my sharing. And if anyway we need to face the pandemic, perhaps there is a meaning. And perhaps life told me that perhaps my sharing may have a chance. And I am really thankful that I have a chance because of logotherapy, because of my sharing. I may have a chance to support a patient who are facing the sufferings in his cancer illness. And I am so thankful. And this also reminds me my teaching motto: life is meaningful despite all the sufferings. Yeah, this is something that I would like to share with you today. To conclude, I would say this is the teaching motto, or something that I really want to share with the audience. That is, I really believe that life is meaningful despite all the sufferings. And in my own language, Cantonese, I would say, 人生即使充滿咗苦難，人生依然係有意義。我好想同大家去分享呢一句說話。So I would like to share this teaching motto with all the audience. Thank you.